Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we're coming at you in a night. I don't know about where you're at, but it's been this chilly, extreme weather of all can be in California. There's been more rain in this last 2 months than there's been in the last 10 years.
It's been pretty cold here, but more just kind of like a just very nippy kind of cold, where they were here it rains a lot. Where they're saying it's been kind of dry for what it's been. I mean, you have those days or those weeks where it is pretty consistent, but weather stuff aside, it's been cold as fuck. I don't know. There's something I noticed, and I don't want us to stay stuck on weather talk too long. It's like, oh god,
that's what makes you sound like a senior citizen. The second that you start talking about the weather,
it's immediately makes you sound like I just turned 36, and I was making a joke to my brother-in-law who's 14. He's like, God, what's it like being 36? I'm like, oh well. You immediately start looking at life insurance policies and all that. That joke went over his head. It's like, shit.
Well, really quickly, happy birthday. I totally meant to send you meant to send you a text message because I knew that the last podcast we did, I'm like, okay, in 2 days, send Ryan a happy birthday thing. But that's mostly how I go. 48 hours later, you're just like, doop-a-doop-a-doo, just going through life. Forgot what day it is. I don't know where I'm at.
I've forgotten yours, so don't worry about that. That's not me being kind of like, if somebody just sent me a happy birthday message. It's not that at all. I'm just not
like one of those ones Ryan sat by the phone all day long, waiting for that one call to come. And it never did. Called. It just shows this long shot of you. You're in this room, and there's just a window behind you of just this curtain. And as it goes, it's the light fades out. Yeah.
I'm wearing I'm wearing a birthday hat that's crooked, just myself.
It's got a little fan.
This is the one celebration for my birthday this year, and I even stayed up till 2 a.m. to make sure it happened. But here we are. Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I didn't stress it. Usually I have that kind of for a while I've been having that external oh my God, 1 year older, 1 year closer to death. But now this year I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. I think that some years it hits you harder than others. But I guess the thing of being oh no, I'm still technically in my mid 30s, but I could also say I'm in my late 30s now, because when you're over 35 on to 36, it's oh shit, we're more than halfway there. So I'm not lying. I'm not lying when I say I'm in my mid 30s, but at the same time, I very well could be in my late, depending how you look at it. So if you round up or down.
And then soon you're approaching the middle-aged man section. The weird one is that now you're 2 years away from being a Homer Simpson's age.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
remember that there was one episode where Marge says his age, and it says he's 38 years old.
Well, also to be fair, I think people just had kids a lot sooner back when the show was made. And they keep on aging them down, but I mean, they were basically young boomers or whatever, or when weren't they supposed to be young boomers roughly?
Well, they're 70s teenagers. That's to me when I consider the Simpsons, that's what they are. They're it's that very first one where they say where Marge and Homer meet, and it's 1976 or whatever, or 74. So it's somewhere like that. And that to me, that's the original origin of Simpsons. I know that they've pushed it up as the decades have gone on, but
Yeah, they always came across to me right before Boomer becomes Gen X is kind of where I thought Marge and Homer were. But I mean, they keep changing it up. I mean, I was just looking the other day, I was just thinking of that bit, the Sonic the Hedgehog reference, with the just take it, And I was seeing there's all Sonic references in Simpsons. There's another one, and it was one of the more updated ones. So they had a flashback to the 90s, and it's a more modern one. When it's this must be where the more updated version where they met in the 90s or whatever. And Marge and Homer, Marge's I don't know, Homer, should we wait? Anything, we should look to the icons of this generation to tell us what to do. And they look out, there's a billboard, and it's Sonic on one knee holding up a ring to Amy Rose. It says hey kids, wait for marriage, says Sonic.
See, it's like one of those ones. I kind of feel like it would be kind of interesting to go through all like the modern day Simpsons episodes, because there's going to be that kind of cool material in there that you just wouldn't think about. Like you kind of put it off at like a certain point. I remember felt like my total like jumping off point of Simpsons was about give or take 2007 or 8. Because like on rewatching them, I'm like at season like 13 or 14 by this point. So it's like I'm totally getting to the point where I'm like, okay, now I'm at about the high school era where like I started like right afterwards. It's just I think it was once I kind of didn't have TV, I just didn't see it as often, and that was kind of like the end of an era kind of section.
Well, that's got to be the thing about Simpsons, because you hear everyone talk about the golden years of Simpsons being like from season like 3 to like 8 or 9, somewhere around there, and I remember that's when I watched Simpsons. That's when I really liked it. And people could name off like characters that only appeared in like one episode. Like there's the obvious ones like Hank Scorpio or whoever. But like then like there's ones like, oh, I forgot who was that. There was an episode with that one guy and someone else could name that character. They're just there for one episode, So I feel like there is this weird bias people have, because like I've seen later episodes and I've never been like, they've been funny, but I don't know where this thing of like, God, every new Simpsons episode past this point sucks. I'm sure they're bad episodes, but I mean, I haven't really seen one that makes me like roll my eyes so bad, but I haven't been keeping up with them all. But I'm curious to know, because nobody I know watches Simpsons anymore, but they keep making them. So I'm like, somebody's got to be watching them enough,
Yeah, I always kind of wonder that too. You know what I mean? Because of course I'll watch. As I said, I've been watching through in like the last couple of years. It's been like a slow process of just like going through from seasons 1 to like I think I'm on like 14 or 15 now, somewhere in that range. And you could see it's like there's every handful of seasons you could see where there's sort of a turnover, where there's just a little bit of a change, where it just feels like okay, they're kind of got a little bit different direction going there. And I guess like that golden age of Simpsons, which it almost feels like, because season 2 is also the one that nobody thinks about, but season 2 has like all the extremely iconic episodes, or at least the ones that like I would think of when we were a kid, but like the ones where like Homer jumps the goalie on the skateboard, and all these like ones, all the stuff that like you see just like in that Simpsons kind of mania, because that's season 2 is pretty much when Simpsons was like larger than life, the same way that South Park was like on season 1 and 2 in the movie, like when it was just everywhere for like a moment. It was like Beatlemania of like the show, and then it kind of dips off for a while. Simpsons lasted for a good moment, but as you kind of go through these different roles and so on like that, like there's still like fun stuff and still interesting things you see even in some of those other ones, and even some of the seasons that people might kind of, as I said, I think it's like SNL, I guess. Once it gets out of like the ones you watched, I guess, as a kid, it starts to be like, well, it's not, not my comedy anymore. It's different people, different style of humor, different things like that.
Well, I never got really precious about this cast of SNL or that cast of SNL, because when I watched SNL, it was like reruns on Comedy Central. So they were like making like of the moment of the week jokes of an episode from like 1983. So I was just kind of like, I was still able to pick up on some of the funny stuff. And of course, a lot of the references and things in the moment got by me. So I'm just thinking about, there's like the thing with like years from now, someone picks a random episode and they pick the one where it's the Mike Pence, Kamala Harris debate, where the fly lands on the side of his head. People are like, what the fuck is going on? Why are they making Jeff Goldblum jokes? Why is he like, I could just imagine all like the confusion that's going to come for people who weren't there right there in that moment. So, but I think that's also the thing though. I think for a lot of people, like comedy, like it's that thing that, how did I put this? Like the thing we liked at the time was very precious to us, so we like it a lot. But maybe I don't know. I feel like people are very precious with their favorite genre. Can't talk right now. Sorry. With their favorite thing at the exact same time, I feel like they're a little bit more defensive on comedy, because especially a long running show, because comedy changes I think that goes out the window a lot more quicker than like other genre and whatnot.
Yeah, well, and comedy is one of those ones. It's like it's such a specific thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a wide. I feel comedy can never be a wide audience like demographic. You know what I mean? It's always going to be kind of like targeted blocks of people and so on. But that's always what I think about. Is like when it comes down to like comedy is like you always got to be like those like, way too in the moment jokes. Like it's like you get a big laugh on those ones. Like just like. Right in like the week or so of it, but it's like those ones. It's like 3 years later, it's almost like it's tossed out material now because now it's like it's not even going to work anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you want to have that sort of longevity, that's probably what like when like we watch SNL as like kids and we'd watch the reruns because my SNL is literally like from 75 to like like 98. I feel like it's like because it's just that was all the reruns. But what they would do is they would do the thing where because you wouldn't watch like the full hour and a half, it would just be like they'd be broken down into hour segments instead. And I know they cut some of the music out and so on, probably for licensing and that kind of stuff. But what they probably also did is they're like, okay, some of these jokes no one's going to get now. It's 25 years later. Let's just cut that skit out. I think that's what made those SNLs almost kind of better is because you're watching them. In a sense, they can cut the kind of the crap skits out because I think it's that thing you like, when you watch those in like the like the 90s and so on, they're only showing you the 50 minutes of like the good material, which sometimes when you watch an SNL, you kind of go, there'll be a couple, moments where you're like, okay, that's kind of funny. And then you'll be like, so there'll be some like skits. It's just like, God, this was just here to fill in that extra. Like, they had some time to fill. They let the new writer do whatever he wanted. And just because go for it, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that's the stuff that they're like, okay, we could chop that out when we do the syndication version.
We also get the ones where it's like where well, first off, you get the ones that don't age that well. So you have the character Pat, like, what is that? It's Pat, and that somehow a movie that character got an
movie of that one too.
Yeah,
because I remember watching that, like watched that movie like late at night. Like I can't remember. Somebody spent the night at my house and like maybe it was like Josh or something like that. It was in high school and we were like watching that. We watched like the whole thing because it was so bizarre, but it kept you like I kind of want to see where this is going. Like it's such a weird skit.
I can see, every so often there's like a nugget where you're like, okay, I can see how you can make something out of cone heads. I can see how, whether it's good or bad, I can see how you get to a lot of the SNL movies that have come out. But the idea
Blues
of like,
Brothers, Wayne's World, like the ones that are like timeless classics.
Blues Brothers being like one of the best ones, and Wayne's World and all that. And to be honest, when I was a kid, I didn't know they were all SNL skits at a time. For a minute, I thought that Wayne's World's an SNL skit,
Yeah.
And then you get to something like Pat, and the whole crux of everything was like, well, we don't fucking know. And people in weird situations where they're just kind of like, there's a John Goodman one where Pat goes to like a barber and he's a barber. He's just like, oh, just give me the right cut, and just looks over like men's cuts this much, women's cuts that much. It's like, she's like, oh, you want a tip? Keep the change, just something to that effect, So how do you make a fucking movie out of that?
That's what I mean.
Did they actually?
Yeah, there was a movie. It was like
I know they made a movie, but did the movie actually, like, is there a movie in it actually? Is there like, what the fuck's going on? Is it just one of those jokes for an hour and a half?
It kind of was. I mean, I know it had a story and everything. Granted, it's probably been 20 years since I watched this, but it would have been like 12 years old, like trying to take this all in. But I remember it being like one of those ones where it's probably not that there wasn't funny parts in it. It was like one of those ones. It was just like, where is this going? We got to watch the whole thing because that's back in the olden days when you threw something on TV. So a lot of times you just stuck with it because a lot of times you only have so many other channels. What else are you going to do on a Saturday night? So you kind of go through it and just go, let's see where this goes.
Well, yeah. What was the other one? There's that, but then there's like, so you get those ones that don't really hold up as much as they used to, just because whether it be social norms or whatever. But then there's other ones. But then there's those other ones where it's kind of like, where, there's an example I was going to make with this. There was one I had a second ago. God, where it's like, Shit, maybe it'll come back to me. I apologize.
Well, then there's like the other ones where it's like it's got like so much of the SNL like team on it, and it's like I don't know if it necessarily came from a skit or something like that, but then they kind of still have movies that come out of that sort of section. Like here's an example. I was just watching just because I hadn't seen it for a long time and picked it up the other day was Three Amigos with Chevy Chase and Steve Martin and Martin Short. And in that one, you're looking at the credits and you're like, well, shit, Lorne Michaels, creator of SNL, he's one of the writers on there. And this is the one that's even weirder. Randy Newman is one of the writers on there with Steve Martin.
Randy Newman? Really?
Yeah. And then like there's like, as I said, like that was one of the movies I hadn't probably seen that movie in like 25 plus years or so. And watching it again, it's like there's a couple songs in there that like Chevy Chase sings, and you're like, oh well, these sound like Randy Newman songs. Like this is where the Randy Newman writing's coming in. It just sounds like Chevy Chase singing a Randy Newman song.
I could see an earlier pitch where like Randy Newman really wants to be on it, and like, fuck. No. We appreciate the writing. We appreciate what he's done, but really, come on, like. Hey guys, I want to be a mariachi singer. You're like, oh shit. Hey Randy, can we talk to you over here? Like, just see it being something kind of like that. Like, yeah. Come on, Chevy. We appreciate it, Randy, but Chevy really wants to be in it too. And Chevy's his name. Well, shit, there's a restaurant named after him. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I never really put that together. I wonder if like when they're putting together Chevy's like the Mexican restaurant, were they thinking of like Three Amigos?
I'm wondering. I just spitballed that. I don't know, but I'm wondering if somebody's just a real big
when I was
Three
a
Amigos.
kid and I literally saw the Chevy's restaurant for the first time, that was the first thing I thought of was Chevy Chase, because as a kid that was like, all the movies you're watching, like Vacation and all that stuff. So it seemed like, that must be Chevy Chase's restaurant. I wonder if he's there working right now. You don't know any better. That's like you're just associating one name with another one. Surprised you didn't assume that he made Chevy vehicles too.
At the end of the day, Chevy's is really just kind of like if Applebee's and Taco Bell had a coked out like night of unprotected sex. That's what Chevy's is really when you think about it, because it's that weird melding of like, we're a family restaurant, but we also want to try and be like a authentic taqueria, and just like, yeah, that didn't pan out that way. Here, kids, have some cactus juice, So, I just remember being something kind of like that. But actually, what I was going to say before I just drew a fat blank. The other thing about SNL is you get those jokes like, I won't say SNL all night or anything, but you get those jokes where it's just kind of like, at its core concept, it's not really the funniest thing, but something about it just always makes the actors crack up. Like there's the Debbie Downer character where like the funniest things is like somebody like, the whole bit of the whole bit is like, so everyone's all happy and she's like, oh geez guys, I really like having pizza. Whenever I have pizza, I just think of the time my dog died, just like zooms in, looks at the camera, zooms in, and then as people say more things, like as it goes on, she always say more just depressing statistics or something. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Like, I remember this one time, like I read a statistic somewhere, like it's someone's birthday party. Like, oh, look, here comes the cake. Oh, did you know that most of the cows that produce the cream for the frosting actually get some kind of like udder disease, and they have to put them down like 3 months after their use? Like looks at the camera, zooms in, down. It's the same thing. Like you couldn't get longevity out of that, but it works perfectly for a script. And usually they'll cut to like, Ben Affleck or whoever the host or whoever the guest host is, and they're just trying not to like laugh. Like there's like so many like Debbie Downer sketches where the person who's not the weekly regular is just like trying not to laugh at the whole thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's always kind of some of the fun stuff of it, As I said, it's one of those ones like I generally SNL's one of those ones like as a kid I watched The Living Daylights of it, and then it's just like just the other one too. It's just like I stopped. I felt like once it got to the 2000s, the comedy style changed, and it was just like Not saying that there can't be a good bit here and there, but it's like other than Keenan, sometimes I could almost like care less.
I kind of started watching it more when Ava and I got together, but since we moved over here, it's kind of harder to get it. So we don't really haven't really keeping up with it. But there definitely be those weeks where it's like, it's kind of a week. But then there's other ones where it's like, oh, this sketch and that sketch. There's always gonna be like a lame sketch every week.
Yeah.
But then, but like anything, you get the better ones and the worst ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's always how it is, especially when you're doing, so much writing and all that kind of stuff there. But yeah, other than all these fun nostalgic shows and so on, but also speaking of nostalgia, I finally finished that Pizza Boyz issue 13, Ninjutsu Sunrise issue that I've been working on for God knows how long, but it finally got done.
Yeah, that one was pretty fun. And this is the beginning of you trying to like a continual story arc, just for this particular season at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where it's like on paper, it's like a script. On script, it sounds like a great idea. You're like, oh man, I got this nice, cool, like almost like movie length story going on, and all this stuff. But then you kind of go, oh, that does sort of pigeonhole me in for a while. That you got to kind of keep going with it and so on. Which that's probably got to always happen. That's even got to probably happen to a lot of guys who do like manga serializations and so on. That like it gets to a certain point where you're like, fuck, did I really want to? Now this is where it's going, and I kind of got to go with it now. You know what I mean? There's no backing out now. They got me locked down at Shonen Jump, and there ain't no jumping out here now.
Kira Toriyama just like
that chair.
Kira Toriyama's
keep fucking pages a week.
I'm gonna stretch this shit out. I'm really gonna just like stretch this fight out while I figure out where it goes from here.
Well, it's so true. It's like there's so many of the longer manga series. They just start off like the first couple of books are like, you're like, oh, this is amazing. This is so good. There's so much adventure, so much of this. And then you could kind of tell by somewhere about book 4 or 5, it gets to that place where like, shit, like all my good ideas, they're all gone. I'm drawing pages every fucking day. So much stuff. And then it just gets like, what are they doing? This character's just going to fight this character. For how long? Fuck it, 3 months. At least I don't have to think anymore. It just gets to that point where like, and it happens like literally some of the best series out there. It happens. It's like almost like those ones. It happens to them all. You know what I mean? If you think you can escape it, you can't. It's bound to happen to you when you're doing that many pages. I think that's the only downfall that under your thumb goof kind of like approach that Japan has on these guys is that like they're going to hit that wall at some point, and obviously it keeps selling, so but it's one of those things. I notice it like in so many books where you just get to a certain point. I mean, Rama 1/2 does it, Baki does it. Like they all get to the point where like the adventure just hits a break, and they're like, well, what's going to be easier? Just have a fight about 6 people for like that. God knows how long. Just whatever. Give them a gimmick. I don't give a fuck. Some punches. The more action and punches there is, the less backgrounds I gotta fucking draw. Like you can see all the escapes out of there too.
Yeah, there's all those little things like, oh, good, I'll just make it so there's a cloud of dust so I don't got to do all this shit. Yeah, I've been kind of taking a break from, I'm not done with Marvel and DC, but I'm just taking a break because they just, they kill everything off and they reboot everything every like 3 months now. So it's getting fucking hard. Like I was looking ahead like, wait, there's another end of the world apocalypse thing that's restarting shit. Fuck's sake, I need a fucking break. I just need a fucking break, So like the Justice League died again. Okay, great. All right, whatever. So I just taking a break, and I'll get caught up later. And so I was looking more into like, well, what are the kids into? What's the manga the kids are? Because I was more into manga back in high school, and that's not meant to be me being kind of like dismissive. Like, oh yeah, I get manga if you're a kid, not like that. I didn't keep up with it as much. And there's my couple of series I read. So just to change a pace a little bit, and for creative fuel, I picked up a couple, and I was going through after seeing the first couple episodes of Chainsaw Man, but it was kind of harder to. The channel I was watching them on were just illegal drops on YouTube. And they eventually got taken down. Like, well, I guess I got to read the manga now to know how that continues. So I picked up a couple of the mangas, and then first 2 volumes of Sakamoto Days, and then
that one's amazing.
I'm really liking that one. And then Spy Family. I started Spy Family, which is
I have that one saved on my list, and I haven't got to it, but it looked interesting.
It's pretty good so far. I read the first 2 volumes of Sakamoto Days, and that one's really fun just because I like the John Wickness of it. It's like, it's very kind of like, it's very obviously like that John Wick hitman kind of underworld thing, but then it has some of that kind of like very anime wall breaky kind of humor. Like after he'll be fighting, and after just fighting for a little while, he's jacked and buff again. Then he just walks in a room, has a few cups of noodles, and comes out, he's fat again. Like, not a big deal.
Yeah, like you can just burn it. Like, let's just got that little element of fantasy to it. Like, there's some powers and everything like that. But I just like them because it's action packed. It's fun. I'm kind of waiting for it because it's like I'm all caught up on that one. But I'm like, okay, I'm at book 5, which generally this is where the anime series start to hit that walls coming up any moment now, where like they're just gonna fucking run out of ideas for like their initial run, So I'm hoping it doesn't get to there, but I'm just waiting for it just to be like, okay, book 7 and 8. It's just gonna be some long ass fight and no real story.
Well, another reason I want to check this one out is because I don't think it has the anime yet, and it would be nice to be caught up on a manga before an anime comes out. Because I'm used to reading the manga after the fact and finding out if it went this way or that way or whatever. You know what I mean? If it does the Full Metal Alchemist thing where it just makes up its own ending in that later half or not.
Or Hellsing, the original series.
Yeah, where just like I'm reading the manga, I'm like, okay, this is where Incognito comes in. I'm like, oh, that's not who's the fuck's the dandy man? What the fuck? Oh, this shit got so much crazier, So,
well, I personally prefer to read. If I have a choice between the anime or the manga, I definitely prefer having the manga one. The only downfall is that the mangas just cost so much more when you kind of compare it to like the animes nowadays. Because like anime nowadays, unlike back in the olden days, is pretty much like a dime, like 1,000. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it costs absolutely nothing to like watch like those series unless they're like really fucking hard to find or something for some weird reason. Where like the books, like unless you get lucky, like you just can't seem to like, you're always going to be paying give or take $10 for them, whatever they are. Sometimes there's $7.99 or something. Sometimes they're $12.99, somewhere in there. Even if you're getting digital ones, you're mostly lower than like $5.99 for them. And I know that this just happened like yesterday, that they had that like massive Comixology layoff thing or whatever. But it's like, I've just noticed that ever since like, apparently they did. I saw something on there because it's like, and of course it was like right when I released my comic, like, hey man, it's up on Comixology, so whatever / Kindle right now. And then there's all this like hate for their like they just laid off like 70% of their staff or whatever, and so on. I was like, oh well.
It seems like I don't want to derail us, but it seems like every other month, like a major like company is having mass like a major tech company is having mass layoffs. Like, I mean, like fucking Elon Musk is a fucking idiot, so he just spitefully firing everybody. But then you get like Mark Zuckerberg coming in like, yeah, I saw Ready Player One. Seems like a good idea at the time, but here we are. So mass layoffs later. Sorry, my bad. Now Comixology.
Well, I mean, at some point as a business, you kind of have to. You gotta, like when you got such a giant business. I kind of get it. Like I know that like people like see it as like machines eating other machines, and like it sort of is, but like.
Well, for the metaverse thing, the metaverse thing though, what that is, that was a dude's ego thinking he could invest this much of his company into this wacky idea no one gave a shit about, and then thus crashing everything else almost about the company. But Comixology, I don't know the details about that, but the Elon and Zuckerberg thing, it's just totally dipshits in their egos.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like there's like everything, there's reasons behind it, their kind of plan of action. But I know it,
or lack of plan.
And a lot of times too, what it happens is that really the person always to blame is the people that sell their companies off. Like I feel like, in a sense, whoever sold Comixology originally to Amazon, I know it's kind of hard when someone offers you millions of dollars to say, fuck it, yeah, sure, I'll take that. But really, it's like, if there's one thing I've learned about every like book on like a company, or like even an artistic group or any of that stuff, the second that they either, one, the company goes public, or two, they sell it off to a bigger like conglomerate, that's always kind of like where the end of the dream kind of happens. It's like, it feels like, do you guys not read these like fucking autobiographies and stories? And, I mean, it happens like over and over and over. I mean, like, here's even an example. It's like Atari. When Atari sold to Warner Brothers or Time Warner is literally the group. You can blame that 1983 crash of video games on Warner Brothers. They're the ones that fucked that up. If it probably would have stuck in exactly like Nolan Bushnell and, you know, the actual Atari hands, it probably would have been fine. There probably would never have been even a crash in 83 because you have people that actually know what they're sort of doing, and you don't got just these kind of bigwigs who think they can just like milk this cow until it fucking, you know, drains up on the side of the road, you know, and then go on to the next one, you know. And I know with like the Amazon thing, like, obviously once that merger happened, it's like it's the inevitable when, like, why would Amazon have two book companies in a sense, you know what I mean? Like I kind of knew that was bound to happen, that it was just gonna mutate into just Kindle. And I guess since I've always used Kindle, I was like, well, whatever. I mean, like I use both of them, and then it's like I just started using Kindle more once it kind of went more Amazon, and then now it's like, well, I guess now I'm just full on using Kindle. That's kind of okay. You know what I mean? Like I got kind of just used to it. And then Kindle's structure actually got better over Comixology's as time went on too. So I was like, oh, what?
Well, Kindle, and I knew that they weren't just going to have two different companies. I knew something was going to happen that way. So the second they got more, when they got bought by Kindle or by Amazon, I was like, oh shit, well, this is already writing on the wall. And then you kind of saw the big thing. You can like, didn't they just suddenly have a massive purge of books, or you had to go re-upload your books or whatever, something to that effect? A lot of
I heard something like that, and I never had, but maybe it's because my books were always on Kindle and Comixology at the same time. Because I noticed there's a lot of people out there who didn't put their books on Kindle, and I just felt like, why would you not put your books on there? Because I hate to sort of say it, like if you go to tell like a grandma where to go get your books at, like what you got to tell her, Comixology? No, you probably don't even know what you just said right there. You know what I mean? But if you tell her, hey, it's on Amazon Kindle, I know what that is. You already got them. Like, I felt like it seemed stupid to not have your books on Kindle. Like someone was really missing out there. So maybe because I already had mine all on there, like I had no issues. It just, my account just converted over nicely.
I just like the idea of the grandma being like, I want to read the newest issue of Berserk, but like, oh, well, did you try Kindle? Like, oh yeah, we'll try Kindle. but a long way to pedal back to where I was originally going with this. The one thing I've just noticed is like ever since Comixology, like just the website completely disappeared, I feel like those really good Comixology sales I have not seen I actually never have seen. Like they don't seem to appear like on Amazon, where like, you know, like sometimes there'd be like a Christmas sale, and it'd be like the equivalent of like a Steam sale where you go on there, you're like, shit, I can buy all these, you know, $25 graphic novels for $5 right now. What? Or like, you know, you would get the ones where like Dynamite Comics would have the thing be like, it's the Dynamite Ultimate in your face rate party sale. $15. We're going to give you 75 graphic novels. I know you don't even want all these ones. You're not even having enough time to read them, but come on, that deal's so fucking good. Some of them are omnibuses. They're not even just graphic novels. They're big, thick fucking books. A Jungle Queen. You got some Red Sonja in here. You got the Green Hornet. It's everything that your grandpappy would have wanted to read, but he's dead. So you got to live the dream and read what he can't read now. I'm just imagining the way you say in that voice, just like a guy, like someone's uncle with a beer gut and like a MAGA coat, like cozy, being like, "Let me tell you what Dynamite's giving you. All right, get ready, open up your fucking pie hole. It's an omnibus stuff. It's nice. It's thicker than a dick. Get ready to jam that down your fucking throat, nerd."
Well, and nowadays, like you know, I'm just reading comics. I do a thing where I do like a rotational reading of stuff, where I'll read like a manga, then I'll read like, you know, like a DC or a Marvel one, then I'll go and read like a Dynamite or something kind of like that sort of sense. So you're just kind of like changing it up all the time. And Dynamite's always one of those ones, which I will say is the Dynamite's always like on the Kindle Unlimited / Comixology Unlimited, so you can like practically read everything they have without having to spend a single cent other than that $5.99 a month. But like just all their books there, it's just like I just love all the great old timey, and they generally keep their stuff like they don't fucking edit things down or, you know, try to modernize it or anything like that. Just it's like, no, it's just like, I mean, it's new artwork, of course, but like, no, we're gonna keep this fucking 1920s book the way that God fucking intended. You know what I mean? And here you go. But you know, I know you're a fucking lazy bastard who doesn't want to read an actual novel, so we're just gonna make the comic book version for you with the pretty pictures. You know.
John Carter's is royalty free on audiobooks by now. You can listen on YouTube if you wanted to, but let's be honest, you need pictures to catch your attention. Come on.
Exactly.
You can't make your way through a full NPR podcast. The fuck you kidding? Yeah. You can be pretending you're all cultured and read a fucking book. Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. It's about a guy. Sure, it's about a guy fighting green people and fucking Martian girls. But let's be honest, you're not. You're gonna get to page. You're gonna get to page 20. You're like, oh, you gave it a shot. Let's see what the pictures look like.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, those John Carter books are fucking amazing by Dynamite. So, but they are like the lazy man way of reading through it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I've actually I was just talking that mad shit, but I never finished the John Carter book. I was listening to the audiobook and then I'm like, I'll get back to this, So, yeah.
I read book one because I bought like the whole fat set for like 99 cents on Amazon, and it was like I read book one and then I just read the rest of them in comic book form. It's like, well, they got this comic books here. I guess I could just check this out. Not that I don't enjoy a good read, but it's just one of those ones. Sometimes I feel like if I can go through this even faster in a comic book. It was the same thing I did with the Tarzan ones, which the Tarzan ones by Dynamite were fucking awesome too.
I guess I wasn't sure if the John Carter books or Warlord of Mars or Deja or whatever, I wasn't sure if those are like, here, now we're doing our own idea, or if this was like a rough, like an exact, or like a rough translation of what happened in the books, or if they're doing kind of like taking that world and doing whatever they want with it, or maybe they expand on it at some point and do their own thing.
There's the series that's like, I think it's like 2 omnibuses long. That's like literally just like, here's the books, but in graphic novel form. And then there's the one like the Deja Thoris ones and all that stuff. I think that's all like brand new, kind of like people are now making new stories off that, because there's quite a bit of like other John Carter books I still haven't got around to reading, And then that was the same thing with the Tarzan one. The Tarzan one just does the thing where I think it just takes like the first book or two and just combines it in like the straight, the guy does a little bit of changing, but not much. If he changes something, he says it. No, like all those ones, it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I love that Dynamite company. It's like one of those ones, like, it's just like the most like old, as I said, it just reminds me like their target audience has been dead for like 30 years, but it's like they still making cool shit.
They're one of those companies, and I have a few of their books, but I haven't really kept up with them. I've been meaning to. Well, I haven't really been reading very much, other than like a couple of the manga books that I talked about. Like, other than the first 2 volumes, since I got here, I've only read, well, your comic, and Sakamoto Days, Volume 1 and 2, and I'm working through Spy Family, and I'm probably gonna finish up. Going to start because I was flipping through Chainsaw Man, like, oh, it looks like this is right up to where I was on the show. So you're going to pick it up from there. But yeah.
There's one other one I just started that I had it sitting here for like a good while, like the first volume. And then I'm trying to do this thing where I'm like, okay, I want to start just breaching through my stack. Both stacks of digital comics and physical ones. The downfall is the more you read, the more you end up still buying like a fucking madman, because you read something, you'd be like, shit, this is so good. I gotta get the other ones of this now. And you're like, I'm trying to whittle down the stack, but whatever. I'm going through it actually pretty well. But there's this one that I started up that I had sitting there. It's a manga one, and it's called like Golden Kami. I don't know how you say the last word. Like I look at it like almost like, because it's literally about like the Japanese-Russian wars, like how it kind of says in the back. So it's like the Golden Kami, even though it's before Kami, communism. But as an American, you see it like that. But it's like Kamuy. So however that is, it looks like Kami in America, but it's this one where it's like this dude gets done with war, and he was just this like, war hero or whatnot, but things kind of went awry. So now he's out trying to get this money for like his buddy who died in the war with him, to get like his wife like this like operation for like her eyes. And it's one of those ones where they're like, in America we could send you there. So I'm like, no, as an Asian person, you don't want to go to America at this time period. There's too many movies like that where it's almost like when you get to fucking Once Upon a Time in China, and there's all those guys like, yeah, you know what, the railroad, they're gonna take us on over, it's gonna be great, we're gonna go over there. It's like, no, it's not. They're gonna hand you a thing of dynamite and tell you to run to that cave.
Yeah. Just take this road flare. Yeah.
The only guy this is working out for is that Chinese guy who's there as like your fucking like not tour guide, but like what do you call that, where people sell vacations, but instead he's selling a fucking job.
Oh, the tour guide.
Yeah,
not what you're talking about. That tour guide. I forgot what you. Yeah, I know what you mean though.
It's like a job that whatever. It's like that guy's the only guy who's making the fucking commission off how many like other Chinamen he can get to send over on the ship, but he's gonna still live in China. That guy's doing great. Nobody else. But yeah, like what this story goes into is that he's out there looking for this like lost gold of this tale from this like prisoner guy that he kind of heard that was somewhere out here. And then it's got all these sort of like, in a sense, native Japanese type tribe people, like, in a sense, the way I look at it, it's all the people that like once like Tokyo and all these cities started up, they're like, fuck that shit. We're going to go do what we've always done, you know? And he meets this little girl out there who's kind of like this little warrior tribe person. And she has all these cool hunting skills. And as it goes through the whole thing, the neat thing is it's kind of like, I guess you would say weird, but it's kind of like educational. Like it'll literally be like, she'll set up like a trap to like capture like an animal or something like that. And it explains how to build it, like almost like diagrams and all this stuff. Like how it goes about it. And same thing when like they capture it, like she'll like give it like an entire recipe of like from like skinning like a squirrel all the way down to like how you cook it and so on like that. And just these weird like extra little tidbit informations that you don't always see in everything. But it's just kind of this
like
cool
the
story.
Edge with Anthony Hopkins.
It literally is, dude. He literally fights a bear like in here and everything like that. And yeah, just I'm on the second book right now. And yeah, totally action packed. It's like 1906, so it's got a cool time frame in it, you know. Yeah, it's got. I just feel like you can kind of survival skills at the same time as you're going through it. Japanese skills, like half of them, it's like okay, you know, and it's like it keeps giving you fucking like, you know, like the measurement of distance and like the old Japanese way of doing it, and then it tries to convert it back to meters too, and they're like, okay, yeah, I kind of get that, so yeah, carry on. But no, it's just cool. It's badass. Man versus nature. You don't get enough of that anymore. Just a cool like storyline, kind of partially historical. It's got all this, you know, I keep saying like Native American, but it's not Native American. It just feels like that, but like native Japanese, like characteristics on like, you know, these people and everything there. And just a neat one. But I looked it up and it's like, there's like 27 fucking books of this thing. I'm like,
Jesus.
It's probably going to hit the wall then at some point, because once again, as I said, I've never read a series that was like longer than like 10 that like didn't at least at some point, like, start getting to that point where like, okay, fucking Shonen Jump's putting the fucking thumb down on us now to keep making these.
He's got to fight like there's a pack of 85 wolves, and like, oh, it looks like we're gonna have to spend a whole issue fighting one wolf, you know, like, all right guys, that gives us 85 weeks to figure out what the fuck we're doing after this.
Yeah, exactly, one of those ones. God, and these are those ones too where it's like, it's so weird that like the average amount of pages that one of those manga artist kind of guys do is like, they do like give or take 19 pages a week. Now, granted, there is like an assistant or two. I think everybody has. I think that's like when it comes down to professional mangas and comics. Yeah, the unspoken thing is how many assistants are there? Like, and I even think about that in American comics. You know that even at Marvel and DC, there's probably these unnamed like assistants that are there that really, hey, draw the fucking leaves on that oak tree for me in the background. That kind of shit, you know?
Yeah.
When you really need to make a picture super detailed or something like that. I always feel like
scales on Captain America's chainmail.
Yeah, there's somebody who's doing that over and over and over again that just doesn't get credited for some odd reason, you know?
Yeah. No, well, that sounds pretty badass. Golden Kami. Yeah, I wish I can come in with more of like, oh, here's some weird, crazy one that no one else has been talking about. But no, it's just the ones everyone's talking about, which is Spy Family, Chainsaw Man, and Sakamoto Days. So
is everybody talking about Sakamoto Days now? Because I found that one on my own. Like, and nobody.
I've heard a lot of people talk about it. At least a couple of manga and anime YouTube channels I follow were talking about it.
Yeah, because I found it like on book 2. And then like they just started coming out with the other ones. And at least the upside to being American generally is the fact that mostly when you discover one of those books, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, in Japan, these books they're already on like book 10. So we're just translating them and just whipping them out for you, you know?
I like the there's the Chinese girl whose dad was a member of the Triads, and she has these warm memories like, yeah, sometimes my dad would take us on nice hiking trips and we'd go out into the woods and bury a bag, and then like, oh, you're helping your dad dispose of bodies, so it was still a nice bonding experience.
Yeah, exactly. She's just kind of fun and sort of in like that kind of clueless state or what have you. But then she's also, I was like, I don't know if you've gotten this far, but like her special ability is that she gets like raging drunk and then she can fight extremely well. Yeah. I didn't know if that came up yet in the second book.
Yeah, it's in the second book that happened, and yeah, no, I'm liking it. I'm liking that one. I was the other one I was started was Spy Family, and I know that one's already got an anime, and that's moving along. But that one's kind of interesting. That's also kind of like that dark comedy, and that whole like this guy has to. Have you heard the concept of that one?
No, I just kind of saw it like it popped up on like the list of books, and I was like, oh, I'll have to look at that one.
There's this one guy who's basically meant to be the ultimate spy, and for his next job he has to have a fake family to help blend in. He has to have a kid to get into the school who like the target's kid goes to the school. So he's like, okay, I gotta get a wife and a kid. And he just goes to how cold he is to everything. Like, because he's done with this job, he's on the next job, and like you see him kind of like he's like talking to his girlfriend, like, yeah, it's time we break up. Like, what? Yeah, I don't really love you, and I think you're kind of boring. I think it's best we break up. Like, you professed your love to me like 2 weeks ago. Yep, feeling different now. Just like you see, like the job was over, so he doesn't need this lady no more. Yeah. And he's off to the next thing, and he just goes like, I need to get a kid. So he goes into like an orphanage, like, I need your smartest kid. So that he's looking around, and he realizes he's like, I need a kid that's like, there's a kid there that's like, it's actually a psychic. He doesn't realize it, and he's like, well, this is the smartest kid we have right here. He's just like, she looks about 4. I need someone who's 5 or 6. And she's like, I'm 5 or 6. Like, oh, well, that works good. And then he's just like, then all of a sudden, like, he says, like, do this crossword puzzle for me. He puts out a crossword puzzle. She reads his minds of what it is. She just fills it out real quickly, like, and he's like, okay, so he gets the kid. And then she picks up on that he's actually a spy. So, and I know what happens later. Eventually the wife, he ends up getting, I don't know how they get there, but she's an assassin. So it's kind of like this makeshift family of all for the sake of this job. So I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah. How many books is that one up to now?
I don't know. I know there's an anime out for it now, but I'm literally within like the first book. Like I'm only like the first few, like 2 or 3 chapters in. I'm barely in it, so I started like yesterday. Yeah. But yeah,
it's always that weird thing when like if I see the length of a book series, it almost could be a turnoff if you get that point, because then like in my mind I start calculating the price it will cost to like read the entire thing. I'm like, that's like a $350 endeavor to read that whole series. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, I am. There's something that is like a little like reassuring when you look at it and you see that like, oh, this thing stops after 10. So like Hellsing or something.
Hellsing's like the best. Like, and like, see, and he always seemed like the most reasonable person, because when you read his special features, he's like, yeah, it takes me about a year to do one of these books. Not like one of those like. He's not doing 19 pages fucking a week. And I kind of like, okay, see, this guy seems more believable. A year, like that seems like a very like, and a logical way. I feel like that's why all those books like never feel like they get to the point where like he has to just fill pages to fill pages,
Was Hellsing popping up like in a weekly or monthly magazine, or did he just present it as a manga whenever he was done?
I think that one's one of those weird ones where it's just a straight, like, it's just straight to manga, straight to graphic novel form. I don't think that was like maybe it was serialized on, but like, I just remember in those special features, he did mention that it took him a year to make each one of those, which like the normal, like, for something for like Shonen Jump, they come out with like 3 of them a year. So.
Yeah. No, there's one I wanted to check out, which is like I saw the concept and it sounded cool. It was like I think it was like Go Loser Ranger or something to that effect. But what the whole concept is, it's kind of like a Power Rangers like Power Sentai. What do you call that? Like Super Sentai.
Kind of,
something kind of like that. And one of the members on the team has a grudge from everybody else, or he got scorned by them or something, but he's back on the team and he's trying to kill everyone and destroy the team from the inside. So it has like a more violent kind of aspect. I was flipping through it, like, this looks pretty badass, but I don't want to overwhelm myself with like more than like 4 series at a time or anything like that. But just the concept of being kind of like back alley deal, Power Ranger shit, because even all the people on the team all had their own like vices and were all corrupt in some way. So I'm like, that actually sounds like a pretty cool concept. I know it's kind of like the Boys, but with Power Rangers, but I think it's still that itself still works,
Yeah, well, I think the idea of a darker kind of Power Ranger story is just kind of a cool, interesting one, I remember when they had those IDW Power Rangers books. Now, it's not like they were really necessarily dark or anything like that, but they just felt like when you read that series of like where they were doing the old school Power Rangers, but just in comic book form for that, it felt like it was almost like the way that you remember Power Rangers is like how that story sort of went. Because, when you go back, you're like, oh man, it's a lot more goofier. And like they have all this like the sitcom elements in there and so on like that, like as a kid, I think that stuff kind of went more over your head and you just focused on the action and the story and everything like that. And I feel like, because I think they had Kyle Higgins was writing on those for like the longest time. So you got the dude who did Nightwing for a long time doing them. And those Power Rangers books, I think I have like 4 of them or something like that. They were super good.
Well, every so often you get those. I'll be honest, I don't have a soft enough spot in my heart for Power Rangers to want to bother with that. But at the same time, I can see that being the case because really, I mean, going back to the IDW for a second, I still like Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic the Hedgehog is, if not sillier or as silly as the Power Rangers, but you just really got to find, like, depends how much you like the character and all the stuff, and then just find the right way to present them. I guess there are just some things from my childhood like, oh, I can go back to this, but I just don't have enough fond memories to go. I mean, I liked it when I was a kid, but I just don't really. I saw the new movie, and I didn't really like the new movie that much, but new movie as in 4 or 5 years ago by now, Jesus. Yeah,
it was one of those ones, like, I felt like that movie was one of those ones like, God, you make a sequel to that and you could get it all really dialed in, and then they never do that. Like, that's people don't always think about. It's like a lot of times it's like it sometimes takes one, you almost got to get one step out of the way, and then you could come in and smooth it all out.
Well, it's even like, I think you could do a good rebooted Power Rangers of some kind, but even that movie, like, they did the thing that we should all be well over by now, in like a brand, like a well-known brand adaptation, and that is they get the suits at the end. It's like, why? What
was this, 2005?
Yeah. Why the fuck are they getting the suit at the very end? And at the same time, why do the suits look like shit, And then the whole time, I mean, I appreciate the fact Zordon's kind of a dick. Like, yeah, I didn't want you guys. You guys are a bunch of fucking dipshits. It's like, hey, Zordon, we didn't ask to be here. Yeah, you jumped in my match with Cave, so I'm stuck with you fucking piece of shit, kid. It's like, dude, what do you want us to do? Here's how you throw a punch. Okay, cool. What else? Oh, get the fuck out of here. Like, dude, what the fuck? Like, that was kind of like their whole relationship. So the idea of seeing like Bryan Cranston is just like Zordon, who's just like had it. He's fucking done. That in itself could be kind of funny. And he was like very unnecessarily a dick to them. I remember that about it, And but then they also had like, they had Rita Repulsa or something. They made it so she was originally the Green Ranger, which that was a new thing. That was a new addition, right?
I think so. I mean, it could have came up in one of the many thousands of other series of Power Rangers past the original series, but
which that was kind of an interesting tie-in to that aspect right there. But then like the Zords just looked fucking stupid in that one too.
Yeah, well, when they all missing like together. Extra detail is what they're missing. It's one of those weird ones where it's just like, I don't know why this is always so hard, where it's just like, it's already there. Like, literally just take like 1993 Power Rangers and just 100% convert that look into like, a modern presentation or whatever. That's all you have to do. It's like, it's keep the same color scheme, keep the same looking fucking Megazords and all that stuff. Like, I feel like it's the same thing with like a comic book. Like when they go to adapt a comic book and you're like, dude, it's right there on the fucking page. It's right fucking, are you fucking blind? You better be fucking blind. Cause that will make, I'll actually understand it a little bit more if you are.
Granted, like, I'll say this because, like, when you think about it, like, I mean, granted, the MCU had 10 years to build us up to Thanos and the Black Order and all that for us to be normalized to that shit when they got there. But you could make other alien cultures and life seem cool and still kind of click into that world, I think. So why the fuck is Goldar a giant golden molding piece of shit? Why is he like an ever forming gold piece of shit? Like, I was like, the second I saw it, like, that's Goldar. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not like, how dare they besmirch Goldar? How dare they? But I was like, Really? That's fucking. I mean, you don't have to tell me. I just know because it's gold and it has wings, and that's somebody. That's a writer thinking they're being fucking clever.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the thing. Is like I kind of hate that. There's a lot of those kind of people that like. I think that they think they're a better artist than the people that created the material, and it's almost like that thing. Like, no, let's be honest. You're an artist that nobody gives a flying fuck about. You just happen to get this right job. Somebody else created something legendary. Now stop for a second and are you going to fucking like out Picasso this other guy over here? You know what I mean? Like, is that what you think you're trying to do? Like you're going to try to out, do somebody else? It's one of those things where it's just like, let's be honest. You should follow the guy who had the extreme legendary design or, multiple people. That was probably a Japanese TV show of all kinds of crew members, but still, that's kind of the thing. Like, don't think that your one little like, poof of imagination is going to be better than like fucking years of like material.
Well, that also goes back to both manga and kind of speaking on this right here. Like one of my most hated movies of all time, Dragon Ball Evolution. Like the thing about that is the idea that like, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you were to make Dragon Ball live action, there are things you would have to change. There are things you would have to adapt and alter to have it make sense in a live action world. At the exact same time, they're not saying that movie has to happen. Exact same time though, to think like, we know better. Oh, really? You know better? You know better? Really? The idea of like, yeah, look, this may be a thing that these like nerds like, but we think it's best if Goku goes to school so he's not uneducated. We also think it's best if he's well trained and he's looking for girls so kids could adapt, could relate. I'm just like, okay, and like, well, how many writing combined? How many writing credits do you guys all have, or how many things have you guys made? Okay, this guy's made 800 books, and it's still like the most. It's still one of the most respected things in Japan. Okay, I'm just saying. Just saying. Just
exactly. Well, that's the one thing I generally get. I feel like Japan's much better at adaptations of their own material. Granted, there is a thing where sometimes they do the thing where like, shit, you're only done with book 3? Fuck it, we're going to keep going. Like they do that every once in a while with animes. But beyond that, for the most part, they kind of take the manga is sort of like generally the Bible, and they sort of follow that generally pretty close to a T as far as like the anime goes. And then if they translate that into like live action or anything else, it always looks the fucking same. You know what I mean? Like if Japan makes it, it's probably going to all fit in that same mold. Even though it comes like something like Dragon Ball, it's always going to look like Akira Toriyama stuff. Where in the US, like if it goes into another genre or it goes into anything, or not genre, but another media, it literally will completely change sometimes. Like where it almost is not even recognizable anymore. Like it's just one of those ones, like I don't know why they can't just stick to like it just feels like it's there. It's like the easiest job in the world. Like in a sense, if you're doing an adaptation of like a book or a comic book, especially, I mean, a book, I guess you got to kind of think of what everything looks like, but if it's a comic book, it's fucking right there. It's like, you go here, wardrobe, just make this costume right here, right fucking here. See this one right here? See it? Fucking Jim Lee drew it. That's the fucking costume. Don't question it. There it is. I mean, maybe you have to do some adjustments to make it kind of move properly, but beyond that, there it is.
Here's a question I have for you, and I don't want to sound like all doom and gloom, but let's be honest. It's a matter of when. Maybe we won't live to see it, but it's really, at the end of the day, a matter of when. When? What do you think is going to happen first? Disney creates a live action Disney Plus version of Dragon Ball, or they do like, you know what, we're going to do a CG animated adaptation, and pick it up from there. What do you think is going to happen first?
That's actually kind of a good question, because
it's going to happen eventually. I mean, even though they don't have the rights yet, Disney's this ever evolving, just we must consume,
Yeah. Like Disney's literally, it's like fucking Akira of Disney. It's just at some point they're just going to eat everything.
It's like it's a Tetsuo blob with mouse ears.
Yeah. It's funny. Like there are some things like it was either like I think it was an audio commentary from like the 90s on something I was listening to or something like that, and they were bitching about Disney buying up shit, like Disney buying up all kinds of stuff, and like it was like 96 the commentary was, and like just getting fucking ridiculous. Disney's just buying so much shit right now, it's like you almost can't even do movies properly anymore. It's just like how long that issue's been going on. I mean, people obviously were saying it like in the fucking 70s. I mean, look at any Ralph Bakshi movie, how much he fucking hates like Disney, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think maybe I could see the CG Dragon Ball one because that's the safer option. You do kind of a CG and a cartoony. You do in a sense like what the Super Mario like the new movie is going to be. I feel that's a much safer option. You know what I mean? I feel like if you don't want to stir the pot too much, but I think that if you want to make a really big, I think if you want that kind of like in a sense that Avenger type money, you got to go like live action. Well, let's be honest, 10% live action, 90% CG.
Yeah. Who knows? I'm not saying I want it or anything. I just kind of wonder what would that be? Like, is that the thing it's going to be like every so often, I just can't help it because, even though I was like, I'm not worried. I'm not like I said, I got a little older. I'm not like, well, it's time to get ready to die. But there are those things where sometimes I wonder, like,
he's out there dusting, cleaning vacuuming out your coffin and everything like that. Like,
yeah, I'm already just digging a hole in the backyard, like just to prepare myself. No, but like, it's just like, it's just one of those things. Like one of the things, and I guess one of the more sadder, morbid thoughts is like, well, Batman stuff's probably going to keep on coming out. Fucking Star Wars stuff's going to keep on coming out. Mario, whatever. What is because I doubt by then there's going to be like, oh, we're done. Because things just keep going now. So I'm wondering like what
people don't watch movies anymore. The industry's just shut down. That's it.
Yeah. Now you just take a little tube and shoot it in the side of your head, and you get a whole like movie in like 3 seconds, and you get the experience of a 3-hour movie, but it's really only 3 seconds and saves time. And it's like Inception.
You get the Total Recall experience, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. No, well, I'm wondering like, well, what movie will I be missing out on right before I die? I'm like, God, like, oh, they're finally doing Sonic the Hedgehog 85 is coming out, and this one has Sonic, Shadow, Silver, and also Knuckles and Bark the polar bear have a fist fight. This is the one.
And they've resurrected Jim Carrey to actually be Robotnik one more time. Then they had a necromancer and everything come out to do it.
You understand, the planets had to align perfectly for them to use. This is their only chance to use the Necronomicon, and they used it, and this is the only movie. I'm going to die in 3 weeks. We know because technology at that time now, it's down to the minute. I know I'm going to be dead. So.
See, there's literally it says it on my, when my smartwatch is built into my wrist now. It just has a countdown timer on I feel like that's almost like a cool idea for like almost like a Twilight Zone episode, is that everybody has these watches on where it just shows the countdown of how much time you have left in life.
I actually I didn't go through with it just because the thought was getting too morbid and too depressing. I couldn't find a real there's kind of I actually thought of like a short story for something like that, and I was playing around with it, but I was like, thought's a little too morbid right now, and I was kind of working through some shit, and like I don't really want to be thinking about this. But the idea was, what if the minute we're born, what if like we know when we're gonna die, like the moment we're born, and then somehow like they're able to like test your blood and look at this thing and says the day you're gonna die, how many years. So, parents would be like, oh my God, he only has 5 years, so they'd be, so then there'll be special things like, I think if we knew exactly the day we were going to die, we would be able to be living radically differently.
Well, that'd be like Big Fish. You know what I mean? Because it's like he gets that fortune teller who's like, oh, you're going to die at, 86. So he's like, and that's it's like, since I knew how I was going to die, I could do all this crazy shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you would have those situations where you had people like that who they knew they'd have a long life, and you have people who knew they had a shorter life. And out of that, would there be special kind of like Make-A-Wish foundations for those kind of people, or would those kind of people, or would there be like, if you knew it was your last day and you were still relatively young, would you have like a big party or something like that? Your last day, you knew you're going to be alive, something to that effect, and then like the external, like the existential terror that might come with that, or people building everything up to this day, and like, and then at the end of the day, ultimately it comes down to like, best not to pay attention to it. Best not to look at it. There'd be some kind of segmented group of people that don't look at the clock, don't look at time. They just kind of go off on their own and don't really like keep their eye, just so they could live more naturally. When it happens kind of thing. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if there's enough there to have a story, but I think there is something interesting in that. Like, I think people, if we knew to the day we were going to die, we would probably live differently to that.
Wait, and then you'd have to have that one character to be like, there's like this one girl or whatever, and she never had her time tested, so they have no idea. Like, she's living life on the edge. Like she doesn't know, and everybody's like you don't know. How do you even get by in life if you don't know? I literally set my life to this watch.
That's what I mean. Yeah, there would be some kind of group of people that would like just be hippies or nomads of some kind that don't follow by that, and it would be something like, well, we shun them, we don't want them part of the society. But then, like, they're the ones that are like, oh, well, they're really happy here because it's not about a rat race about trying to get as much time in as just kind of going with it, as opposed to just trying to jam as much whatever in before you get there.
Yeah, it's like the Destiny thing. See, I feel like that would make for a fun, like, Twilight Zone-y style story. Like, there's be something, like, every once in a while I'll think of, like, kind of little tidbit things like that. Be like, this would be kind of fun just to do, or like a creep show, I guess you would kind of say, like that kind of, where you just had a handful of little teeny fun segments where, maybe they're not really full-length material, but just enough that you could play with it for a moment, and it'd be kind of a cool little world to kind of dive into.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something there, but like I wasn't really committed to the idea enough to do anything. And plus, when I first thought of it, I was kind of working through some shit. I'm like, this is probably not the best thought to be playing around with right now. So, but yeah, no, I think there is.
As you get there, you're just like, I'm at like the halfway point of life, and I can't even see my clock.
For all I know, I could still be at like the quarter and change point. I could be at the halfway point. I could be at the quarter and change point. I probably should eat more vegetables, but
Yeah, it was just choices in life. I mean, who knows? In the future, we might even have even more futuristic, like, medicine to keep it all going and what have yous, or you're just going to stick to the old school stuff of just, eating off the land and that good thing. But yeah, there is that weird thing where you kind of get to, bring it back to like Simpsons. There's like that one point where like somebody tells, I can't remember, they're like, live each day like it's your last day. So Homer's just sitting there on the side of the road just crying, be like, this is it, it's all over now.
Well, I heard there's the episode, to bring it back to that, I'm not sure if that's the same episode, but there's the one where he ends up like, he goes to a sushi place and he orders some dangerous roll, and then like
he that fish that like you can get in Japan where like if it's not cooked properly it kills you.
And the guy who's the pro sushi chef, he's like, I'm on break. He walks out, and the new guy's like, pulls out the gun. He's just trying to look at it, So, and then like, and then Homer has his list of all the things he wants to do, for what might be his last day on Earth, and he finally has like a good relationship with his dad. He's like, he's like, let's keep on spending time together, son. Like, okay, like scratches off like last beer with friends. Like, I wanted to do that, but okay. Just like there's like 3 things he scratches off. He spends so much time with his dad. Like, fine, whatever, bye. Drives off, leaves his dad on the side, leaves Grandpa Simpson on the side of the road. And then like the episode ends with him like, oh, I'm alive and I'm going to live every day to the fullest. And it cuts back to the next day. He's just eating chips in front of the TV.
There is that sort of thing sometimes where you're like, yeah, well, as long as you're doing what you like, that's almost like the key thing, It's that kind of thing where would you rather, sit around and work on something that you never cared for? Or would you rather just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to enjoy myself and do what I'm into? Which for Homer, that's hanging around, eating and watching TV.
Yeah, exactly. If Homer, that's all he really wants.
Yeah.
Just the idea of someone getting like a super I don't know. The funniest thing about that whole episode to me is just somebody getting like a super dangerous fish, and then like And then like just he pulls up the diagram, like, all right, let's figure this out.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it here on the spot. Oh.
I realized earlier in the episode you mentioned the newest episode of Pizza Boyz.
We like skimmed over that real quick.
we went on a tangent about mangas.
Yeah, I kind of went there. I know, because that's sort of the thing is like, I always do that thing where like, okay, like there's this book that I got actually recently. It's called like the Guide to like Shonen Jump. And a lot of times I'll just buy these like certain like drawing books or something like that. They kind of just give you inspiration or what have you, or you might get a couple techniques and so on. This book right here was almost kind of one of those interesting ones where it's a book on like how to make comics without actually telling you how to draw comics or anything like that, which is kind of like, it just has a bunch of like interviews of all the dudes. Generally they're all like the younger guys one, because like when the oldest guy in the book is the guy who does One Piece. Now granted, I know One Piece started in like 98 or something like that, but like, everything else in there, you're kind of like, oh well, my generation's fucking like senior citizens, I guess, and by this standard of like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon and all that stuff, but whatever. But it's just kind of like literally goes through and asks all these guys kind of like different questions and so on of like, how long it takes them, like there are different processes, yada, yada, yada. But it's just kind of neat because it's like, it's all like the actual details that are actually, I feel, more important than like telling someone how to draw. It's more just like saying like, no, let's just like hear what all these guys kind of have to say. And those where I saw so many of those ones in there where these guys like, it's like what they consider a draft. They're like, oh, I do like a draft in like 7 days or something like that. And I'm like, and I'm kind of looking like this draft is, or like, no, it's not 7 days, like 3.5 days, like something ridiculous. I'm like, I'm assuming that's kind of like penciling in America speak, And all I do is I'm like, man, I really need to like on my next Pizza Boyz one, I need to get that speed aspect down. You know what I mean? Like, just, as long as you can just get it kind of pumped out and so on. I mean, I think it was even like the One Piece guy said, he's like, if they gave me all the time in the world, I'd probably just be stuck on the same panel. So it's almost like by having them forcefully tell me I got to get the next one done, it keeps me from being stuck up there.
Well, by giving yourself by having like, whether it be yourself or someone else giving you the time limit that at least says, hey, it has to be done by this time. Just got to get it out regardless. It's never going to be perfect. So you just got to get it out there, which is a good thing to do. It's a good thing to have, really.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one of those ones. Like it's not like it's like one of those things where I get like hung up too long on anything, but it's like trying to get these pages kind of going. Like on the new issue, I've drawn about 4 pages so far, just the penciling part. Nothing, no inking or anything else yet. But I did 3 in one day. I was getting all inspired on one of those like things, like oh hell, and then it's like, and then like then you kind of get like a couple panels like in like the next few days. You're like, well, okay, they can't all be winners.
And don't take it as me being like, you're really fucking slacking, the guy who's been taking forever for his one book to come out. So don't take it as me being that guy. I was speaking more for myself right there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of it because the first one's like a good introduction, and you're doing the whole you're doing like kind of a couple of things like you said. This part seems more Pizza Boyz, but the rest of it's like a welcomed new thing, like kind of a Coen Brothers situation. But then, because they stumble into something bigger than what they know what they're getting into. But then as it starts off as kind of a Coen Brothers situation, it evolves more into a Street Fighter / Final Fight 90s surfer era kind of like situation.
Well, yeah, and that's just the thing I want to do. I want to have that feeling that you kind of get when you watch something like, Ninja Turtles or Three Ninjas or the Karate Kid, American Ninja, like all those kind of ones. Surf Ninjas, of course, too, where it just has that like, whoa, like late 80s, 90s, just cool looking characters, just that kind of era. Another one that I was watching because I have it takes place in Santa Cruz. I was like, shit, what movie takes place in Santa Cruz? I totally forgot about fucking Lost Boys. I haven't watched that in a while. Yeah. So I sat down. Well, it was weird because I think also what came up is Joel Schumacher was on an older podcast, of course, because he's passed away sadly. But he was on one of the Eli Roth podcast or whatever, and just talking about Lost Boys and all that stuff. And he said that like when Lost Boys came out and like they wanted to go shoot in Santa Cruz, like the main reason they almost chose that area is apparently at that time period, Santa Cruz used to be per capita the most violent city in America. Or the
really?
Yeah, and it was just, but per capita means because it's got kind of a small population, I guess. But there's more murders and deaths there, for how small that population is. And that's why they put it on there. And then Santa Cruz is like, whoa, don't put that on the fucking sign coming into town when you're shooting here in the movie. Like, call it something else. So of course they changed to like San Carlos or whatever the heck it says in there. Carla, I think it is in the movie. But it's like, shit, anybody in California knows that's Santa Cruz. Like, Santa Cruz is like one of those places. It's such an iconic looking area. You can't really hide it. That'd be like saying that like it's not San Francisco, but you're showing a shot the Golden Gate Bridge they're coming across. You're like, well, where the fuck else is it? Or being like, somewhere else to be like, there's the Eiffel Tower. Well, I guess it could be Las Vegas, but
yeah. Shouldn't someone come over the Golden Gate Bridge? Like, it's Los Francisco,
Yeah, like one of those ones, But I was just like
San Angeles. Yeah.
But I was like, man, and it's like funny as I'm watching this, I'm like, you know what? The Lost Boys really almost has that 100% look of kind of like what I kind of picture in my head of like when I'm thinking of this kind of Santa Cruz thing, because it's got that like 90s whoa era kind of like you're on the beach. There's all kinds of interesting things like that. Of course, it's vampires and not kung fu, but it's got just like all those, like when they show the background shots, everybody, there's the guys of just like, not, beyond just the Lost Boys characters of like the wild hair and all that kind of stuff. There's just the punk rocker, random ass people you see, and just all the goofy characters, the comic book shops, like the media shops, all this stuff. They even got the old oiled guy. Do
you have the oiled up like saxophone player?
Yeah, I forgot about the I'm like, it's such a weird one because this guy looks like he's dressed to be in like fucking like, like a Jane's Addiction-ish, maybe not even that, like a Faith No More style band. And you almost feel like it should be a lot more heavy metal. And there's this guy like playing like almost more Bruce Springsteen style music, but he just does not, it doesn't even look like he's like, it's such a confusing look to like the music coming out of that band.
Well, like, that's actually, I'm wondering, because I never really thought of like, I never lived in Santa Cruz. I've only been there like just visiting. So, but I'm wondering, like, did it get really gentrified at some point? Because I never really got that like real like rough, we're in the rough part of Santa Cruz kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Maybe it got gentrified, or like at some point or something, or they really cracked down on a lot of the shit there. But I wouldn't have guessed that really.
Yeah, as I said, it just seemed like such a strange one. You're like, all I think about, like, what? And Hell beat Stockton? No.
Sorry, Stockton.
You can't take that award from them. Like, come on, one of those kind of things.
Come on, Stockton, give him the ribbon back. Like, we don't want to, Stockton.
We got some stabbings planned tonight. You'll see. One of those kind of things. But no, just like kind of like the setup as Pizza Boyz sort of goes is because like the first issue was just like let's get them down there, let's get this fucking like get the characters going. I wanted to kind of have it be like boom 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 boom, we're rolling, we're there. It's got the kind of cool cabin in like the Santa Cruz mountain areas, which I realized that really, when I was looking like I was looking through all the pictures of like the Santa Cruz mountain areas, I'm like, it really ironically does not look that much different than Tuolumne County when you're up in those mountains. Same fucking trees.
Them, yeah.
Yeah, no, like there's some of those beach trees, but once you're in the mountains, not on the boardwalk or anything like that, but when you're in the mountain areas, like it's like one of those ones like, shit, I could just draw this almost close to the same backgrounds as I always draw. It's like it looks just the way it is,
Just copy and paste some shit.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones there because I was literally doing that thing that sometimes I do. I call it like it's almost like the lazy man of like instead of you could go drive down there. Or I could just load up Google Earth and just fucking virtually drive through areas and take a look at stuff and kind of like view stuff that way, And I was just kind of going through like the Santa Cruz Mountains areas. It's just right above there, which I kind of wanted to have for like the sensei's like home. In a sense, it's kind of similar. I guess you would almost say that house in fucking the Lost Boys, because that's almost like where the grandpa's up in the mountains and everything like that. He's a little bit closer to the beach, I think, but it's kind of not really that much different, But have all that kind of stuff there. And then as I go into issue 2, we got the Kung Fu stuff kind of going. But then I got sort of like, in a sense, cocktail scene. Because that's literally where I got the idea from for like what I wanted to have the characters start splitting up and everything like that. Because there's just that thing that, you know this because I've told it to you, but you kind of get to a point where if you have too many characters in the same scene at the same time, it gets tough to sort of like write everything properly, because then you always got to think of like, well, what are all the other characters doing at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thing that like I kind of want to make a story one of these days where I only have like 3 characters, like the anime trio. Like there's a reason why it's the anime trio. I think it's a lot easier for like your writing when you don't have to have so many excess characters always like hanging out and loitering in the background.
When you have an ensemble cast, like ensemble casts are usually always easier when you actually have an actual cast as opposed to you having to draw them all the time.
Yeah, well, I think there's always that too. It's like when then you got to draw them all the time and everything like that. And as I said, so I thought, like, well, what I'll do is I'll split up into like an A, B, and a C story, pretty much in a sense, and then I can have it kind of cut back and forth, and 2 or 3 characters that a crack can kind of be, doing stuff here, doing stuff there, and as other than Kyle and Cisco, everybody else is back training kung fu. Then I also got the pizza girls down in Santa Cruz bringing down like a pizza wagon truck. And then I got Kyle and Cisco pretty much getting jobs as bartenders down there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like you get more of that's also kind of interesting because some aspects of it seem kind of like, okay, the idea of Kyle and Cisco becoming bartenders to like hook up with girls or whatever. That sounds like a very Pizza Boyz-esque type story plot line. And then, because that sounds like something they would do, like the characters in your comic would do. Like they would see like a movie from the 80s and go like, oh, we could probably do that. And they go and do that. And then you get the girls trying to do their own thing and then just kind of rolling their eyes like, oh, these fucking guys over here the whole time. And then you got the remaining cast doing the experimental thing with the martial arts aspect.
Yeah, so I feel like it kind of adds just different layers. It is what made the script end up being probably thicker and longer. But
is it still 4 issues?
No, it's 7.
7. Oh, that's a big one. Are you going to release this as one big like volume or are you going to be like split up?
It's split up. I mean, it's one of those ones that I feel like the idea of doing a fat, just being that person who just is like, no, it's just, I'm going to go straight graphic novel. It's like my buddy Derek, when he did his Kepra book, like he was just like, instead of technically releasing it out, I think it was the Kepra one. I don't think it was the Maroon volume. No, I think it was Kepra. I was like, I'm just going to do a 350-page graphic novel and just those single issues, just go the distance. And it's just like, okay. And he did it and went the whole way and just came out with this tome of a book. And it's just one of those ones like, I feel like that's totally cool. Somehow I wish I could one day achieve to be like that. And that's that sort of thing with like the Pizza Boyz one. I'm like, I kind of hate to say it. I feel like you could sit there and do that, but I feel like I'll just release them as single issues at the moment because then I'll just have stuff for Comic-Cons and stuff as time goes on, and hopefully that's kind of there. I think technically, in the longest run, the graphic novels are kind of the general way to go anyways, just because I feel anybody who generally reads comics, that's like the core way they kind of consume them. Not saying that single issues don't still have a place and all that kind of stuff, but it's just nice to get like a solid storyline and everything like that. And it would be like the equivalent of getting like a movie and only getting like 20 minutes at a time. I know that's what they would call a TV show, but it's a little bit different than that.
No, I get you. Well, plus this is also the first time you're doing a continual thing with it. So, I mean, you have characters that are introduced in one thing and they pop in down the line. But I mean, the first time it's actual like one big long continual story. Like tune in next week for the Pizza Boyz. I'm assuming that's the voice you whenever you have a narrator. I'm assuming that's the voice.
Oh yeah. Mentioned. Yeah, definitely got to have one of those. Yeah, that's about the only downfalls. Like that's the thing, and I've been thinking about it literally for like over a year, where you're kind of thinking in the back of your head, where you're like, you get that thing where you're like, am I kind of like pigeonholed that? Because it's, the upside of doing things episodically is the fact that you can always go, you do one, and then you can do something completely different on the next one. You could completely switch the genre. You could completely switch anything you want. When you do have one kind of long storyline that you're sort of doing, or longish, you know that you're in this world and that you almost can't like bail out once it kind of gets rolling,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it because I know it's something. I mean, I already like where Pizza Boyz goes, and I appreciate the episodic kind of, how everything is kind of its own standalone story. But I do look forward to just seeing something kind of something different. They kind of like throw a monkey wrench into it, see something you wouldn't really entirely expect from the series. And I saw you also gave it your first colored cover.
Yeah, and I thought, what, I'm gonna try out the colored covers. I used to always just do the straight black and white ones because my thing was that like I want people to go like, you see it right on the cover. It's black and white. You know what you're getting into. It's one of those kind of things. It's not like you see a cool because something that always bothers me is when there's like covers for certain comics and they choose a completely different artist to do the cover, and then you open it up, you go, that's not that artist. Like that was like it's like. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the cover almost should represent what's kind of inside as well. Or even you'll see just some covers and they look really awesome. And then you like see the artwork.
Nothing to do with the book.
No. And it's like, it's kind of dumb when it's like that. So I felt like that's kind of what it is. And this one here, I'm like, you know what? Since I'm doing the Kung Fu thing anyways, let's try the color cover. You'll give it that sort of manga feel anyways. And, with the black and white interiors. And then it's also sort of a weird test. I feel like it's a Comic-Con test too, because I kind of want to go like, all my stuff generally at Comic-Con for the most part is in black and white. I technically actually have one other color cover, but it was a special edition one that I sort of made. I made one for the Pizza Girls one where it's a holographic cover that also but I recolored that cover of Pizza Girls, like the issue 11 one.
Well, is it also something to the effect of it being I feel like something like given the setting and the 90s aesthetic, I don't think you need an entire book for that, but something that helps kind of get the image across of like a sunset and sunrise and kind of like those colors that get associated with a beach town in that 90s kind of like surfer, whoa kind of feel. I feel like to get like, those pinks and those oranges and everything between, I feel like you kind of need to have like at least a little bit of color on there, whether it be a cover or somewhere,
Yeah, no, and I think it's kind of nice to just, it does make it pop a little bit more. I definitely feel like it'll probably look pretty sweet once like the printed out versions come too, to see how those kind of all look. But it does give it something else, because I said it'll be fun to see the experimentalness of it for when it's at Comic-Cons. Like, because will that be more eye catching than like hardcore black and white? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get you. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of it. So
yeah, as I said, script wise, I'll have to send you the full script at some point and have you kind of take a whole look over it, because I like the way it goes. Like, I was just kind of doctoring up issue 2 of this section, and it's one of those ones like I'm digging it. I like where it's going. It's fun. It's funny. It changes kind of pace here and there, and then same with issue 3. As it goes on, it just kind of captures different stuff. Because I just wanted to capture. I'm like, I want to just capture like the things that I liked about certain martial arts movies, video games, comics, and so on.
Yeah. Well, it's also shit, what was I going to say? It's late over here. I apologize. Shit, what was I going to say? I feel like it was something related to the 90s or to the genre. Oh, no, I remember what I was going to say. I remember at a time when you were working on an earlier version of this, you just said, I've been working on this like martial arts script, and you're telling me about it. And then you later decided to convert that into Pizza Boyz. So now it's just kind of interesting to see, all right, well, what point does this character, what are these characters? Who are they interacting with and being? And it sounds like you're expanding. It's more actually intricate because there's more characters involved, but it's just kind of funny here in the original plot. And now imagining like these fucking dopes are in it, these fucking idiots, which adds another level. Being us.
These fucking idiots being us. Yeah. Well, I think that's what kind of thing I went with. I'm like, that's why I put the character Terra in there, who's kind of like she's like the pull-out character from like the original Ninjutsu Sunrise kind of script. I'm like, I need somebody who's like in a sense like a standard martial arts movie character. You know what I mean? I got to have somebody that it wouldn't like in a sense like there's just some like story elements that come later on that's like, you wouldn't do this to any of like the Pizza Boyz characters because it would be too out of place, too dark, too like that. But is if you have your own solo kind of martial arts character, you can have those beats in there where they have that kind of backstory and that kind of upbringing and stuff, and they can be the straight character in all this in a sense, and it can almost be their sort of adventure in a weird way that the boys just happen to get wrapped up into, well, boys and girls as the Pizza Girls as well too, and have them all sort of intertwine into this.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in that aspect. And it just is it's just interesting to me, kind of imagining like, wow, he's drawing me is like my character's dressed like Fei Long, so or Bruce Lee rather, so
Yeah. Well, that's why I started dealing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give each character like, and they'll get their suits or whatever, I guess, in the next issue is where it technically comes. But I had like the kind of proto drawings that I sort of did, and it's one of those ones like, I just gonna give them each one's kind of like almost like represents sort of whoever kind of likes a certain martial arts kind of style, like the most, or who their character sort of fits,
Not that I'm asking to be, like, please make me the coolest guy and make me like get all the girls and make me like save the day. I'm not asking for all that. I'm not asking for all that. Just don't make me the like, oh guys, I'm really trying. I'm really trying really hard. Oh, you'll learn to do a kick one day. Oh, I sure hope I do. Just don't make me, just don't make me that guy. Just please don't, or even the Krillin. I love Krillin, but like,
No, I hate to say it, if somebody's the Krillin, it was somebody else, and they've decided to give up already and do something different in the storyline.
Oh, okay, so that already happened. Okay, I just want to make sure, like, oh well, he's not good at shit, but he's got a lot of heart, and we gotta have everyone needs a sidekick.
Yeah,
you don't need that guy to cheer from the sideline. And throw a Zinsu bean when shit gets bad.
Yeah. And don't fucking eat them. Like, because you got bored, you thought it was a bag of peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
No, as I said, like I think that where this is going, it's going to be kind of fun. But when I was writing it, one of the key things I had to kind of remember is like when I was kind of getting deep, like once I was in like issue like 4 or 5 of like the arc, I was like, I had to stop for a second and be like, shit, wait a second, pull the brakes back for a second, because you start almost you once you get kind of involved in the kung fu story, you start writing it like it's a straight up like you're writing a fucking martial arts like shonen adventure comic or something like that. And then you gotta go, wait a second, it's still gotta be a Pizza Boyz one. It's still gotta make sure like we get some laughs in here and so on like that, like because next thing you know, you almost get lost in the storyline. You kind of start writing.
Well, the thing I've been working on, I won't go into it, but I was sometimes I would just like just dismiss away an action scene and sometimes draw it out, but sometimes I'm like, to make it really pop, you almost have to go into that level and like plan it out. And like I was flipping through some more action-oriented mangas, and there's the ones where you just punch the other side of the wall, and the guy comes in, blocks, punch, whatever, dust cloud behind him, whatever,
Yeah.
Then you get the ones that are a little bit more grounded. And there's like a level of like finesse that goes into getting all this action in there, making it fit the page, making it make sense, and still making it seem different enough, and not just have you punch, kick, done, punch, kick, done. It's just this thing we just got to get out of the way. Like I'm gonna say, there's something I do like about manga, like because I think a lot of times I come at things from American comics sensibility. In manga, it's way more snappier. It's way more to the point. Dialogue doesn't go on forever. It's way more of just like majority of the balloon bubbles are 1 to 3 sentences. Let's make this happen. Let's get it to the point. And I do appreciate that. The only point where they could probably lean back on the dialogue is the narration of the battle, which makes more sense in a manga when there's no motion, but you don't need that. And when you do the anime adaptation,
kind of the manga action style.
Well, it's kind of like to the point, where I feel like a lot of American comics, they really like the action looks cool and it's neat, but a lot of times I feel like a lot of the action is not really like the big focus, where I think in manga action is the big focus, but also it's a lot snappier. It's a lot more to the point. Like a lot of word bubbles have like 1 to 3 sentences majority of the time, and it's in a way where it doesn't feel ridiculously rushed, but at the same time, I guess also with Japanese exposition, they kind of get to the point a lot quicker, but sometimes like we could pace it out just a little bit, but at the exact same time, I think there are things that we learn from both. And even like, I do find myself really admiring the way they lay out like interesting battle in a manga.
Yeah, no, what if I kind of hate to say I love all types of comics and all different styles, but I do sort of almost prefer the structure style of a manga almost a little bit more sometimes too. you know, sometimes like some of the American ones and European ones, like, and it's not saying that there can't be different ones, but sometimes it's just like they just flow, and sometimes they're just a little bit more snappier, and sometimes like, you know, you can just kind of tear through those pages a little bit quicker. And I'm not saying there's certain other American ones that are amazing, and they just, you know, you get the extra amount of details in some of them, and just like the real painted pictures and all that kind of good stuff. But something about that like manga, especially when it comes down to like martial arts action and so on like that, I feel like that's where it's just all so dialed in. I mean, when it comes to Pizza Boyz and all that action, I mean, that's beyond movies and video games. That's definitely the inspiration. Okay, well, I guess that's just telling us that it's time to wrap it all up. But yeah, all sorts of great things out there to read, Pizza Boyz included. You can go check that out on Amazon, Kindle, Comixology, Global Comics right now. I got them up there. So if you hate Amazon at the moment for, you know, laying off some people and merging more things and creating, you know, an autonomous conglomerate empire from used books, at the end of the day, if you want to know how you can take over the entire world, keep in mind it all starts with a used bookstore. But you get options in life, and that's what I like. I like options. So you got those places. It's like Global Comics. I got it up on there. That's kind of like the new kind of indie comics home. There's other places, but I like that one quite a bit. And you can check it out there. And more things will be coming as time comes on. I got the prints. I know they've been shipped off already, so hopefully I'll have them in like a week or two and go from there. But other than all that good stuff, you can go to oldmanjoins.com for all the rest of our fun things. And I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.